sites that are currently occupied by U.S. forces to the government of Iraq or U.S. mission Iraq, to ensure uninterrupted support to U.S. forces.
And Major General Spoehr, we're ready to go if you are, sir.
I am. Thank you.
Roger that, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Department of Defense's Bloggers Roundtable for Thursday, October 7th, 2011. I'm sorry, not October 7th, October 14th, 2011. My name is Petty Officer William Sub with the Office of Secretary of Defense Public Affairs, and I'll be moderating our call today. Today we're honored to have as our guest Major General Thomas W. Spoehr, United States Forces of Iraq, Deputy Commanding General for Support. Major General Spoehr will discuss the ongoing reposture efforts, particularly the redeployment of troops and equipment during the last 90 days of the security agreement, which officially began 1 October. He can also speak about the quality of life for troops and questions about USF-I's ability to react to a possible request from the government of Iraq to extend U.S. troop presence beyond 2011. A note to the bloggers on the line, as I stated earlier, please remember to place your phone on mute if you are not asking a question. Please remember to clearly state your name and blog or organization in advance of your question, and respect the General's time and keep your questions succinct and to the point. With that, sir, the floor is yours if you have an opening statement.
I do, yeah, thank you. And good afternoon, everybody, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you and your extended audiences what your U.S. military folks are doing in Iraq and what we're able to accomplish. As the moderator said, I'm the U.S. Forces Iraq Deputy Commanding General for Support. And so what that really means is that I assist General Austin, the commander here, with the oversight of sustainment, engineering, personnel functions, communications, and all the other support functions which really would tie him down and not allow him to accomplish the strategic tasks like interacting with the Iraqi leaders or the ambassador here. My specific responsibilities in Operation New Dawn are the successful retrograde of U.S. Forces Iraq, the transition of existing sites that are currently occupied by U.S. forces to the government of Iraq or U.S. mission Iraq, to ensure uninterrupted support to U.S. forces, and finally the responsible stewardship of equipment and property that's been entrusted to U.S. Forces Iraq. Now I'm going to have a brief statement here, but I just wanted to give you some fast facts, and maybe these will key some questions in your mind. As you probably know, U.S. forces are engaged in executing our responsibilities under the 2008 bilateral security agreement that states that all U.S. forces will withdraw from Iraq by December 31st, 2001. And we're on track with those plans. But at the same time, I don't want to understate the magnitude of this operation. 8 years of continuous conflict has resulted in a substantial amount of equipment, supplies, property, and personnel still in Iraq, and will withdraw with the constant threat of enemy attack and the potential for bad weather. And we're doing so in a deliberate, measured manner, ensuring we protect service members, civilians, contractors, equipment, and property, and we intend to turn over bases, and we have been, better than we found them. And frankly, in my judgment, nothing the military has done since World War II has approached this magnitude or level of complexity. And then I'll just close with a few fast facts here. In 2008, U.S. forces resided on 505 bases. As of today, 13 October, U.S. forces are on 22 bases. Each one of those bases left as good or better than we found it. And that's a reduction of 483 bases. In personnel, in 2008, there were 165,000 people here. Today, on the 13th, there's a little over 41,000. And so if you do the math, and it's not a straight line, but that means our mission would be to withdraw 520 people every day. The other thing I wanted to highlight is in the past, we didn't have precise numbers of how many contractors we are supporting our forces. That has been completely turned around, and where we have now precise numbers of how many contractors, so that we want to make sure that nobody gets left behind. And for the first time, the number of contractors has gone below the number of military people in Iraq. In terms of equipment, we have retrograded 1.6 million pieces of equipment since September of 10, and we have 788,000 pieces of equipment remaining, including about 23,000 wheeled vehicles. Some facts that I deal with on a daily basis: about every week, We have about 13,000 trucks on the road, either delivering supplies or retrograding equipment to the various places where it goes. We deliver about 1.5 million gallons of fuel and about 964,000 gallons, or correction, 964 pounds of fuel, 964,000 pounds of fuel per day. You can't help look in the newspaper and you can see comment about the discussions between the U.S. government and the government of Iraq on their ongoing conversations about any requests they may make for any sort of U.S. presence. And those discussions are ongoing, and frankly, I'm not aware that any final decisions have been reached. And then finally, our legacy. In my view, the U.S. forces and the sacrifices they've made here have provided the Iraqis with a huge opportunity to choose their own future. And we hope they achieve their vision of a stable, sovereign, and self-reliant Iraq. And now I'd be glad to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Chuck Simmons, you are on the line first.
General, thank you for taking our call. Chuck Simmons from America's North Shore Journal. I want to talk trash, General. Every base had a little bit of a dump, and then there were some pretty large dumps created during the U.S. presence in Iraq. What happens with those facilities, and how are we cleaning up after ourselves?
Sir, that's a great question, and you're exactly right. For whatever reason, modern military operations generate a fairly sizable amount of trash, and the forces here are committed to disposing of that trash and that waste in a responsible manner. So there's a number of different ways in which we have been handling that trash, and we'll continue to handle it until we step across the border and leave. We now have environmental transition teams, and each one of these teams, before we'll transition a base to the government of Iraq, they'll have a number of different surveys go out, identify any hazardous or regulated waste areas, and that they will identify those for cleanup. As of the 24th of September, we have 362 environmental areas of concern that we have identified that we will clean up before we depart Iraq. Some of the things we've done is we've been able to sell scrap to local Iraqis, and so about 6.8 million pounds of scrap has been sold so far by October of 2011. And then we've, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. We sold 6.8 million pounds of scrap just in October 11, and since September the 1st, 2010, we have sold more than 142 million pounds of unserviceable material through scrap sales. And then finally, for those things which aren't suitable for scrap sales or for any other means of disposal, we are responsibly disposing of them in standards which we have established by Central Command. Because, quite honestly, Iraq has not yet developed the necessary environmental legislation and laws that you would find perhaps in the United States. And so we are obeying the regulations and the rules that Central Command has established for the responsible handling of waste. And so as we turn over each base, it's kind of our point of pride that we're turning it over better than we found it, and everything has been mitigated or remedied. Sir.
Thank you.
And Spencer.
Thanks very much. This is Spencer Ackerman with Wired. General Spoehr, what's the relationship between the pace of withdrawing the 41,000 troops that are still in Iraq and a possible request from the Iraqi government for a residual U.S. troop presence? To what degree do you have to, or are you, backloading the final 90 days worth of withdrawals to accommodate a potential request? And is there a certain date after which the Iraqis ask for more troops that it's just not feasible without actually taking troops who've been sent home and redeploying them back to the war zone?
That's a great question as well, sir. We are really at this point focused on executing our reposture and transition and the responsible transition of these bases. And so just like any good military we preserve as many options as we can. And so, but obviously those options, as every day goes on, diminish in both our ability on what we could possibly have to respond to a Iraqi request for